All right, Steelers fans, welcome into the Knoll Road. We have the latest on the Steelers coaching search. Are we just killing time here, waiting for the Steelers to hire Chris Shula after conference championship weekend? Is Mike McCarthy a serious candidate, as Tom Pelissero says he is in this report right here? And if so, should Steelers fans be excited or terrified about that? Here we go.
To the corner of the end zone. Oh, for a touchdown!
All right, spoiler, I covered Mike McCarthy for 5 years as he was coaching the Dallas Cowboys. I got some pretty strong takes on that. I'm Gavin Dawson from 105.3 The Fan, and he is New Bear Lesniewski, my favorite football Neanderthal, the all-academic SEC lineman at Kentucky. Brother, how you feeling today?
It's cold, man, but if it's that refreshing cold, like I hadn't felt a ton of wind yet. So I went out, you move the garbage cans around. It's garbage day. You hit the gym, you do the damn thing. And when you walk out and it's just crisp, but it's not biting, there isn't that frozen tundra. Are we in Russia motif to Pittsburgh and the Paris of Appalachia? Like, this is my favorite part of winter.
And I would imagine the robust debate around Mike McCarthy could hit you like a stiff wind as well. An absolute Pittsburgh legend, like, the son that's done good and went out to the world. And I'm sure a lot of people would love seeing him back on that sideline just for vibes. It would be incredible.
I love him just like as a dude. Like, you want to go have a meatball sub and about 37 beers. And I mean, I find him very interesting because he's won everywhere. And like at one point, you could put up a lot of his stuff next to, pretty much everyone. You had him in Dallas. They had 12-win seasons in a row, and they just didn't have the playoff success. But going back over time, like it's Andy Reid, it's John Harbaugh, and it's him in terms of playoff wins among guys who could be active coaches.
And it would upgrade your offense, absolutely. Like, he would do a better job than Artie. He would do a better job attacking the middle of the field and having pass game concepts that would, at least resemble somewhat modern football. But I think he's stuck in the 2000s running a West Coast offense, and he is one of the guys that goes in that Tomlin club of had a tremendous amount of success in the previous generation of NFL football, and now time is passing him by a little bit, and maybe that's why the Rooneys weren't that excited about giving Tomlin the option year of 2027, and maybe that's why Mike McCarthy has struggled to find a head coaching job post-Cowboys.
Well, this is where it gets really freaking interesting because you add all that stuff up and then you go like, all right, well, they said they're not going to tank. All right, he checks that box. He's a real coach. Yeah. He's a CEO, and he's done that job at two of the other pinnacle franchises in league history, and he's done it well. And then you go, okay, well, he's offense. So, that's not what they typically do, but that's maybe what they should do. But he's like 62. And then you just start picking this thing apart, and it's kind of like back and forth, yin and yang. But what's really interesting is that Pelissero better get a 3% cut like the agent, because he keeps tweeting stuff about how great, his candidacy is. But part of that is that he's all in on Pittsburgh and that he's saying no to other teams that want to interview him. And it's like Steelers or bust, and I don't know why he's having such a hard time, particularly when you look at some of the teams that have rebuilds, or if you have a young quarterback and you want to get them to a place, and then look, when it's time, and someone else has to come take you to the next level. Obviously, the local connections and all those things are neat, and they're nice, and they're fun, and they're cute, and they're whimsical. They don't win football games. They don't win playoff games. And the problem being that is the most recent, and in the era of recency bias, unlike ever before. Like, you stack him up against Tomlin and you start going, well, we're just going to lose in the first round again. What are we doing here?
Yeah, I think we're going through a really interesting time period, aren't we? Is it a coincidence? McDermott, 9 years, Harbaugh, 18, Tomlin, 19, McCarthy with all this experience. Like, we're going through a cycle in front office and ownership circles where the light bulbs kind of come on, and they want all guys off the Shanahan coaching tree, or, guys from maybe the Flores way of looking at defense, where we got simulated pressures and we got post-snap rotations and we got, what is it called, the split coverages, where you're doing cover 4 on one side and cover 6 on the other. Like, there's just so much new coming into it, and I feel like the owners and the front offices have finally realized they're losing a significant arms race, and so maybe it is moves they will end up regretting. Maybe this isn't going to work out. Like, Sean Payton's having success. Andy Reid's having success. Mike McDonald's taking the league by storm. He's not a Shanahan coaching tree guy. Mike Vrabel's having a ton of success. Maybe I think Miami's regretting leaning so hard into the Shanahan coaching tree with Mike McDaniel, and you got a different kind of bird. So, but whatever the case, I would say candidates like Mike McCarthy are more out of favor now than they've been my entire life.
Yeah, and it's interesting too to think about. He inherits Favre, right? Which of course becomes Rodgers, and that's about as good as it gets. And it looks like Love is good enough as well. So that's 35 million years of having quarterback one, no questions. And then he's out of football for a year, and then he gets the $60 million man. You have covered Dak Prescott, and I think we all saw him when he is surrounded by good protection. And also Father Time starting to catch up with him, where he's not even thinking about running because he knows he's got to play on time and on target. No, by the way, they stole George Pickens. And that's the big question. How do you develop the young quarterback of your choosing? And do you trust him to be the guy to go find the next great Steelers quarterback when, Aaron Rodgers sat for 3 years, right? Behind Brett Favre. And you start looking at some of this stuff. Here's the one thing that I love about Mike McCarthy when you go back over time. It's not just like 8 straight playoffs in 9 and 10 years, because those are like Mike Tomlin things. He won playoff games in 7 seasons. Tomlin did 4 and 19. What is McCarthy's coach 18 years? He's won playoff games 7 times. Like, when you start breaking this stuff down, there's more better, and there's more interesting. There's more forward thinking. There's more offense in particular. But Green Bay generally had pretty damn good defenses. Dallas had some pretty damn good defensive coordinators. They had some good runs on their ends as well. What I'm talking about is the total team and the CEO aspect of it. And
yes,
what you get with Mike McCarthy is known, where what you get with Anthony Weaver is someone who has never done it.
Yes, and I think what you're saying is he's going to raise the floor of your offense for sure. He's going to make
extremely high floor.
Yeah, the CEO aspects of the job are going to be great, and I think players are generally going to be happy. I think they could have won the Super Bowl with the Cowboys, if they would have been able to stop the run. But I'll tell you what, there were a number of objectives that he had in his 5 years here that he never accomplished. From the very beginning, he was talking about becoming a physical football team. It was a failure. On several fronts, on both sides of the line of scrimmage. They really did not get physical until he left. And then Shoddy actually insisted on, hey, let's go get Kenny Clark and Quinnen Williams, and at least part of, multiple failed first rounds. Other than bringing in Micah Parsons, it was, a pretty bad. So the Cowboys ask the head coach to have a big say in personnel. The Steelers are going to do the same thing. You are not getting a good personnel guy in Mike McCarthy. He is not going to help your scouts draft better. He might help them draft worse. I think he is going to develop quarterbacks. So if you want to draft a quarterback, I would love to talk about maybe Mike McCarthy with Chris Shula. Is he maybe the offensive assistant with head coaching background that could help Shula through that? But he's also not a hard worker. You're going to get more. You're going to lead the league in time off with Mike McCarthy. I don't think that resonates.
Don't talk about people from Greenfield like that.
It was surprising. I was like, what? This is the Steeler blue-collar work ethic? Why are they off again? He'll lead the league in massages. He'll lead the league in DoorDash orders. There's not a lot of nose to the grindstone qualities there with Mike McCarthy. I think that West Coast softened him up.
You are one tough mother, and I hope that you are here for the comments that you're about to get when you
and I love Mike McCarthy. I just want what's best. He won 15 years ago. It's freaking Tomlin all over again. He's a dinosaur.
So here's where this gets really interesting. Tom Moore. I start thinking about he's not going to come in and be the OC. Okay. If he would, This is the only place he would do that because it's Pittsburgh and it's where he's from. But what's really interesting about this is if you think about all these teams that have done this for a long time, Steelers have less coaches than anybody. It's the smallest coaching staff in the league. Now you start talking about going modern. It's not just about hiring a defensive guy who's young and what he does with data points. It's not just about EPA and everything that you love about Chris Shula balling on a budget. I mean, the Pittsburgh Steelers defense costs 3 times as much as what Shula's working with, and they're dead last in the league. So you go, okay, does it have to be Shieldhouse? Does it have to be one of the Kubiaks? But what if it's Shula and Udinski and it's not going to look Weaver? So who's DC? Raheem Morris, because he's been a head coach. So then if you start bringing in these guys like McCarthy as those Yoda-like dudes who can be a part of the team and help you get where you want to go because they have this super solid foundation. And then he's now twice spent a year away from ball. And then look, man, when you get the headset back, you do what you know and you do what works and you do what's in you, right? That's why Eberflus failed on the opposite side of the ball last year in Dallas, because when the shit hit the fan, his reset mode is to basically just hang out and not make mistakes. Chris Shula ain't about that life, so we're going to have the defensive side of it figured out. What you need is to be able to show up on Sunday and have an identity from that extremely high floor, that base and that foundation, and then you have one of the kids, and that could be the revolving door. Maybe Shieldhouse is a year or two away from truly being a head coach because he's never called plays. Grant Udinski the same way, unless the Cleveland Browns just say, fuck it, right? Which they might because Andrew Berry still has a job. But some of these other guys that haven't emerged yet, passing game coordinator, run game coordinator, there's going to be 29 to 32-year-olds every stinking year because McVay's going to go find 2 or 3 more of them. And now these other guys on the tree are becoming coaches. You look at the Kubiaks. They go get their shot. They're going to have guys. And their guys are going to have guys. And so if you have it in place where Shula's the 20-year guy and he's the foundation, and you have a McCarthy who can spend the next decade making sure you're not missing a beat, and maybe he's only around for another year or two because he comes in like the Steelers go gangbusters and Shieldhouse is gone or Udinski's gone and McCarthy gets another head coaching job. Guess what that means? You fucking won.
Yeah, you won big. It was great. We had a lot of fun talking about winning actual playoff games. I do like the idea of McCarthy working with the guidance of Shula as the head coach, insisting that McCarthy ask tougher questions of the defense and, allowing Mike McCarthy's experience to operate inside of a McVay coaching tree box where he's not the authority. Absolutely. He is, his perspective is being utilized, but for other reasons than determining what the game plan and the play calls are going to be. But he has treated motion like it's an exotic.
Yeah.
Right. He has been league average in play action, which is the biggest cheat code that you can do. So if he is in a decision-making capacity, I would say, oh, yes. Is it a coincidence that Dak Prescott had his best year as soon as he left? Now maybe it was George Pickens. Dak Prescott has had a lot of great weapons. He has had much better offensive lines. He has had better running backs than he had this year. But this was the year where Dak Prescott put it together and made a significant step forward in his ability to handle complex concepts from the defense and throwing under pressure. Like both of those were big upgrades as you get Clayton Adams and Brian Schottenheimer working with Dak instead of Mike McCarthy. So I don't want to be highly critical of McCarthy. I just don't want people thinking, oh, Super Bowl winning head coach, 12-win seasons, he must be great. There were a lot of criticisms in Green Bay that led to his dismissal. There were a lot of criticisms with the Cowboys, and nobody's banging down his door. Like he withdrew from the Tennessee job. He doesn't want any of the other jobs. Is that the case, or is that agent spin because nobody wants him? And now he's showing up back home in Pittsburgh thinking I can play up this, this nostalgia storyline with me being the prodigal son coming home to lead this football team. Maybe Rooney will fall for it.
Here's the thing you have to respect, though. When you go back and over time and you look at the raw data, like the spreadsheet of Mike McCarthy, there's a whole lot of single digits. And some of those are literally one, meaning like, what's the advanced metrics that you like, right? Teams rank, takeaway, giveaway ratio. That's a Tomlin thing, but that's also a league thing, right? This isn't just an offensive conversation. When you look at like win-loss percentage, turnovers per game, points, yards, like you go through the counting stats and everything, like the total picture of the team exists, right? Because offense winning means you're front running, dictating terms to opposing defense chasing you, which is something we haven't seen in a decade. Then you go, okay, passing offense. Yeah, Brett Favre and Aaron Rodgers, we get it. But he also like wasn't afraid to run the ball and wasn't afraid to stick with it. You can talk about not loving motion or not loving some of these other modern things. Well, now you have a 29 to 32-year-old wonderkid who's like in here with that base, and now you're building. And that's the thing that's exciting about it, because the reason that Mike McDaniel doesn't get the job in Detroit is because Dan Campbell and those animals look at him in his Gucci jeggings and don't see a culture fit. So where does that play? And who does Mike McDaniel maybe have to pretend to be for a year or two to get back into the head coaching ranks? What expense is that going to come at? Mike McCarthy is literally the opposite end of that spectrum. He's going to show up in his quarter zip or his polo, and he's going to have his hat facing forward, right? Like, he is literally the difference. It's like Matthew Stafford and Caleb Williams in a split screen at the post-game presser, right? One's got the hat straight forward and a polo or a long sleeve, and the other one's wearing, candy-colored rainbow stuff. And it's like, that's the difference that you have to have, the variance that you have to have within the staff. It can't just be a bunch of kids running around like chickens with their head cut off. And Mike McCarthy can play dad.
Yeah. No, I think you're right about that. He's going to do a lot of that stuff really, really well. You know, he knows how well-run football organizations are supposed to operate. And Art Rooney had the answer last week when he was asked, what characteristics are you looking for? He just said leadership. You know, he wants to have a guy who can lead the football operation. And I do not believe he is a strong personnel man. I don't think he's an innovative play caller, but pretty much everything else that he does, he did fix the Cowboys turnover ratio in a big way, and they were number one in one of those seasons, and really allowed them to have a defensive identity, even though they couldn't stop the run and were kind of weak up the middle. They at least took the ball away.
What I would love to see is Rooney's get greedy AF. To go from this place where you have less coaches than anybody, retread, older, it's all Mike Tomlin and friends, and now you go into a place where everything's on the table. Okay, young man, you want to run this thing, meaning the whole team or the offense? We're going to have Mr. McCarthy over here just in case, to make sure that anything that you haven't experienced, he has that wisdom. And that's why I could be talked into Raheem Morris, even though I want no ties to Tomlin, even going back to Tampa or Dungy or any of that stuff. I just think that if you're going to have to kind of meet in the middle, there's a way where you're on that bridge and you're not just stuck in an infinity loop where time is a flat circle, where you're looking at this team saying, here's who we've been, here's the business we stand on, and the non-losing seasons is what's going to get Tomlin to the Hall of Fame. And we are proud of that. Just like we are proud of having three coaches since 1969 and all of winning Super Bowls and all the damn things that go with it. At the same time, we recognize that the game has changed, that football is different, and that to get where we want to go, we need to evolve alongside.
So there's about 18 and a half minutes on Mike McCarthy discussion. If there's anything else you need to say about that, New Bear, go ahead. It sounds like you'd be fairly excited for it.
So what's so hard about all this stuff, right, is that like people have their favorites. I've been effusive in my praise of and banging the table for. I just get the Chris Shula deal done and build the staff. But around that and some of this noise is you just keep finding and hearing, more things and why this person might not be a fit here, why they might be a better fit there. And at the same time, every fan base, think about Gannon in Arizona and Gannon in Philly. And there's like jokes about how Philly tried to warn Arizona. So now all these other fan bases are trying to do the same thing about all these other coordinators or coaches who failed, who are trying to get another job, or, people are doing the Osama bin Laden stuff with Sean McDermott. Like people are going to say shit. And I don't just mean Twitter trolls, and I don't just mean agents. I mean, all of us stuck in the middle who aren't in the building, sitting there with Rooney and sitting there with Khan saying, like, how are we going to build this team? Like, what are we really doing? So you go, is this a smokescreen? Is this just a solid for? But then on top of that, he's turning down other jobs. So it sounds like McCarthy wants
to be agent spin.
But it sounds like McCarthy wants to find a way to make it work. So you're trying to read the tea leaves, you're trying to pull back the Wizard of Oz curtain, and you're trying to say, look, man, you get in your 60s, you won a Super Bowl. What else do you have left to prove? Where do you want to do it? Where would it be meaningful? And to be part of the team that comes in your home city and gets them to the 7th Lombardi and erases all of this nonsense and all of this noise about everything that everyone hates about what it's been with 9-8, 10-7, and getting the break speed off you in the first round of the playoffs. Remember the football life? You've seen the one where McCarthy's in Green Bay and they put the blank team picture up at the back of the room and they talk about filling it in, and then they go out and beat the Pittsburgh Steelers and win the damn Super Bowl, and that show ends, and then they zoom in on Aaron Rodgers and they're, well, he called a shot. He said it. Look, we did it. And it's just that's a narrative. That's a story. If they don't win the Super Bowl that year, if they win it 3 years later, is it still a cool thing? If you put that out there and that team only gets to the conference championship game, is that still not a more successful season, a more realistic one with the 7th Lombardi, not in a rear view about where we've been, but about 8 and 9 and 10 in the future we all want to live in? I think he's a little bit goofy. He's got the American Bulldog thing, like my boys, where their eyes can kind of go in 2 directions at the same time. He's a big guy. He's a little bit aloof. You've made some funny jokes at his expense, but they're also true, right? And then you go, okay, end of the day, how you like those stats? How you like those wins? How you like those rings? And to be a part of this team, to be a part of in his city, right, where the Rooneys win and the Steelers can win too, I mean, that's just something that I think everybody wants to get done.
No doubt about it. And, I don't think it is that realistic, but it seems like right now we're on the precipice of it maybe becoming more credible. For right now, though, New Bear, I am assuming they are just killing time until Chris Shula becomes available after the conference championship week, one way or another. I think they're going to interview Shula. There is a 73% chance right now on Kalshi that
he's negative. Is he minus 200 on some of the other boards?
What's that?
He's like minus 200. Everyone else is plus, and he's the only one who's minus on every board.
The Albert Breer, who was the first insider that reported on Chris Shula and has kind of said this is going to be their guy for a couple of months now, said they really like him. And some folks are even suggesting that this thing is so done, they're just waiting to rubber stamp it essentially as soon as the Rams either make the Super Bowl or are eliminated. Jeff Hafley, Steelers candidate, he took the head coaching job at Miami. That was definitely one of the defensive coordinators that I would have loved for them to get if they had hired a young offensive OC to be their head coach. And then I did see insiders saying that Tomlin is not a candidate to be the head coach at Buffalo. So best of luck to Coach T. Looks like he's already off to enjoying.
Did you see the tweet? So he's down at Georgia watching his daughter, compete, and he's super happy. It looks like he's got his first good night's sleep in 19 years. And they go look at the score, and she landed a 9-8. 9-8. That was her.
No way. Yeah. That is hilarious.
It was like a 9-8-2-5, so it was even like a little bit more toward the 10-7. But yeah, dude. I mean, the thing about this that you just showed, Chris Shula, like Pony and some other people in town have been talking about how you can't be mad. Like whatever happens, like you're getting change. You can't just then be pissed off that they made a change. They didn't pick your guy. I'm actually going to be pissed if they don't hire Chris Shula. And I just want to make sure anybody who only heard 2 minutes ago talking about like everyone wants Mike McCarthy as a senior offensive consultant, maybe as the old man OC under, the young man who's going to take this team where we all want it to be.
All right, we're back soon to update this thing as it continues to evolve. Hit the like button. If you enjoyed the content, consider subbing. We're going to go long form 4 times a week, all the way through free agency and the draft and the OTAs and on to Latrobe. And until next time, we'll see you here on the Knoll Road.